Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 69 of Album of the Day, in which today's album is as for today's review is going to be a pretty special review because I am currently part of the Completist Club of Yep Rock Records, an independent record company in Haw River, North Carolina. They have been around since 1997, and recently, this summer, they put me on their list, on their completist list, which means you join this club and they send you every CD that they release in a year. So it's been something going on since like July, and this review is dedicated to the folks at Yep Rock. Thank you for all your support. Wouldn't have done this without all the love that you give me, and thank you for having so many great bands on your roster. Highly, for anyone who hasn't checked out a whole lot of what's on this label, highly recommend you check it out. It's the label for groups like Chatham County Line, Eleni Mandel, The Old Ceremony, and a bunch of others like that. So today's album is the latest album by an indie band from Toronto, Canada that I had heard the name like a couple of years ago before, but this is my first time actually listening to a full-length record by them. So the band is named Born Ruffians, and I'm here to talk about their new album entitled Ruff. So this came out in early October, and since I'm part of the Completist Club, Yep Rock sent me this, so here's the packaging for it. The track listing there. There's the CD. Showing you some of the artwork. Which, the artwork on this album is pretty cool. Like, it's graphic and all, but, it's still very cool artwork going on this album, and, it somehow manages to fit with the overall aesthetic of the album in terms of, like, what it deals with lyrically. Which is kind of ironic because the lyrics are like metaphors for some of these things. So there's the lyrics in there, and some very avant-garde artwork going on here. Then there are the liner notes there, who played one on every song. The usual suspects. So yep, this is my CD copy of Ruff. My first full-length Born Ruffians record. So, what I do notice about this record right off the bat is that there's kind of a raucous rock and roll attitude going on with it. Which is an obvious thing with the opening track on here, Don't Live Up, which has this, just snarly, nasty guitar riff paired with Luke Lalonde's voice that, is very, powerful. It's, very, and it has somewhat of kind of a brattiness to it that fits in with kind of the raucous feel of the music. And then you have some very unusual elements in the song, too, like the use of a talk box and some saxophones on there, too, which play in really nicely with the groove on here. Following that is the song Stupid Dream, which talks about how people, when they have mental health problems, they tend to kind of regret it, and, they kind of want to destroy themselves, and they just don't really have the ability to, cope with life, and, and instead they're trying to declare themselves as formidable human beings. And in this case, the protagonist mentions that there's this girl that she knows that, they can't really get along because obviously there's something going on in her mind that's you know, that's, keeping the relationship from connecting. Ding. And then there's the song Yawn Tears, which talks about, you feel kind of young and you'll feel hard as a rock. And it talks about how, what's behind you and what's waiting doesn't really matter when you're looking up. So it talks about, the struggle with life, with like growing up and, so basically you're just trying to make your mind look up more. Following that is the short 1 minute track, Don't Worry Now, which, this is kind of, isn't really the strongest track on here. It's mostly just a couple of guitars and a mellotron, which plays in beautifully, along with the slightly disheveled vocal from Luke Lalonde on here. So it isn't really the most, mind-blowing track on here, but I do really like it because the vocals on here, I think, have a certain kind of tension to them that I think really does kind of play in well with the rest of the record. The song, When Things Get Pointless, I Roll Away, talks about how, the narrator thinks it's pretty nice to think that, the world falls apart when he goes to bed, but then it goes back together when he wakes up. And like the instrumentation on this track sounds really nice. Like I love the use of the mellotron on here. It sounds so gorgeous on here. And then I really like the ending of the song where everything drops out except for the keyboards, the vocal, and a piano. I really like that ending because it really does fit in with kind of what the song is trying to cover emotionally. Like everything's kind of coming apart and, getting just dreamier and dreamier. Once again, a very well done track in terms of like instrumentation, along with that fantastic opening track, Don't Live Up. Like the instrumentation on here is pretty unusual. Like the mellotron makes quite a few appearances on here, and then with Stupid Dream you combine, kind of straightforward rock with the unusual sound of the synthesizer, which actually plays in really well. And then there's the song And On and On and On, which, was kind of a fun, song with lyrics about how when we have hard feelings, we have a really hard time trying to fight them, and it only just makes us, and it only just keeps infuriating us the more we deal with it. The more we deal with, us just trying so hard to move on with your life. Your life, and the vocals on here really do sound like Luke Lalonde sounds pretty excited and confident with his vocals on here because of how loud the vocals on here are. They pretty much could they like his vocals it's the kind of performance that could pierce the headphones when you put this on. And the gospel choir at the end of the song, I think sounds awesome on there. Then following that is track 7. Can't say the first word in the title, but the second word in it is feelings. Following On and On and On is that track, which strips everything down to just some drums and a couple of guitars, but it really has a certain kind of depth to it that it really, they make quite a lot with just, the drums, the guitar, the vocal, and the gospel choir that's on there too. Choir. The guitar has kind of a glam rock type of feel to it because it's has this kind of psychedelic feel. Like I noticed there's definitely a psychedelic influence going on with this album. And this song has just a few words, but they make quite a big impression. It talks about a relationship, you get really emotional when when someone has to leave you behind and then they become someone else. So I think just stripping it down to a couple of things really does help leave room for the sort of the lonely, aesthetic going on with it. And then you have the foot stomping, victory driven romper, We Did It, which is a pretty cool song as well. Like the bass line, I really like the bass line in that song. Definitely has a very distinctive tone to it. And it's just, the song that shows, how the band is really good at, blending in humor. I find myself, snickering a little bit when I listen to this song, because the lyrics are just so clever, even though there's, just a few of them that are said in the song. Then we have the explosive lead single from the record, We Made It. Which I like how the song, it has a very distinctive bass line once again. The band definitely has a very fair use of creativity in terms of, the artistic level that's going on in their music, which indie music has been getting kind of generic lately, but these guys prove that you don't have to always be middle of the road when it comes to being an indie rock band. So they are certainly not like a run-of-the-mill type of band. And I love how that chorus just, the guitar riffs have, a lot of power to them. The drums are, the drums are, just booming and just, I really like the energy of that song. The energy of this record is just incredible. Then we have Let Me Get It Out, which has a weird bass line. It sounds more like a synth than a bass guitar. So it's obviously used with some strange fuzz pedal. But the lyrics on here are pretty interesting. It talks about once again, it talks about a relationship. The couple obviously can't connect because the protagonist feels sorry for himself because he's kind of, so it talks a little bit about depression and how it kind of triggers, so it talks about basically issues with depression and, drugs coming into your life, so it's definitely very personal. The whole record is pretty personal, I must say. And then it closes with the ballad Shade to Shade, which also talks about kind of, feeling, this is one song that deals with, how you tend to fade from shade to shade because, the world kind of has you down in a lot of different ways, so it's a perfect way to close the record because it kind of ties everything together and feels like the end of a story pretty much. And but what really sticks out to me in this song is the vocal on here. Luke Lalonde gives an emotional performance on the vocal that I think just sounds amazing on here. So yeah, this album, just overall, just a really good, indie rock record. And definitely one of the most emotional. Definitely one of the indie rock albums that's come out recently with some of the best emotional backbone going on with it. So I'm gonna give Ruff maybe a 9 out of 10 because nearly every song on here has something about it that just sticks out to me. And that's what I want in, albums. I want songs that have something about it that makes it memorable, that makes me want to keep listening to it. And this is definitely one of the best that I think has been dropped this year. And I'll have to check out some of the other stuff this band has out. Like their first album with Yep Rock is Birthmarks, which I haven't really listened to the record, but I'll have to check it out sometime. And some of the other stuff Born Ruffians have put out, So yeah, this is this is like the most recent, like the youngest album that I've reviewed here, because it's only been out for a couple of months, but I think it's going to make a huge impression with fans. So, so kudos to you, Yep Rock. It's been a good year for you in terms of what music you've had out. So, and hopefully next year will be just as good as this year, because you've had a lot of wonderful albums put out this year. This one, along with the Old Ceremonies' new album, is excellent. Like the Old Ceremonies' new record is really good too. I'm probably gonna I'm planning on doing a review of that sometime. Anyway, that's my review of Ruff by Born Ruffians. Highly recommend it. See you for episode 70.